but that risk exists with every decision. So let's say you're like, I want to start this business, but I'm afraid that it might fail because there's a possibility that it might fail,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, and so you can take that decision and you can say like, okay, there's a risk there because it may go a different direction than what I wanted. I could lose everything. I could whatever. And but then if you think about it, that the alternative is, let's say I don't want to take that risk of starting a business and potentially losing everything. So instead, I'm going to get a full-time stable job. All right, that's how most people think about it. Okay, not everybody, but a lot of people do, I think. So I'm going to get a full-time stable job. But the reality is that there's inherent risk in that as well. Like, in fact, in
Yep.
some ways, there's actually more risk because
Oh yeah.
you're not in control of whether you have a job or not. Your
Mm-hmm.
boss is in
Mm-hmm.
control of that. And at any point, you can get laid off. And so, who's to say that by making that decision, that you're not also or more likely to fail, right? To lose everything. All the risk is the potential possible future of something going a different direction than what
Yep.
we want it to.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that potential possible future is also in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Um, None of us can see the future. We don't know that's going to happen. We're projecting it. We're creating this idea. We're imagining this potential possible scenario. And so, therefore, it's not real. It's not true.
Mm-hmm.
It's completely made up. And so, as long as you're going to make up these scenarios, you might as well make up a positive one. And you might as well work towards that positive one. And then, as things change throughout the path, you just divert your direction, right? That's just the way that I like to operate. Is working within that, really being clear on like what my capacity is, and then sticking to that, and the rest of it, like not getting caught up in the hustle culture hype that you have to be working all the time, and that if you stop for any second, then you're going to be leaving money on the table, and all this stuff that's designed to just scare you into working or buying another app or another productivity tool or whatever it is. Because let's be real, like it's all that information's out there to sell something. Just really understanding that like this is how the human body works, and I'm going to work with that instead of against it. And you can create a flow and a rhythm that is so much more productive
Mm-hmm.
than you would otherwise trying to like burn yourself out doing too much.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Brainwashed Work Series. Today's guest is the guy you call when you are ready to build a personal brand that actually prints revenue. He's a creative marketing expert who's helped scale multiple seven-figure brands using organic content with over 500 million views across socials. Super excited to have him here. Welcome to the show, Eric Thayne. What's up, brother?
Hey, hey, Adam, how's it going? Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for being here. Super pumped for having you on. And I have a prepared bunch of questions for you. Super excited to having this conversation with you and dive into your story because I'm really like obsessed of studying and learning from other like what other people are building and what they are like, what they drives them and how they think and so on. So really excited for this conversation. But before I jump into any questions and reveal your greatness on over here, I would love to, and probably all the listeners would love to hear the way how you get actually into entrepreneurship would inspire you and how did you break that script that we've been handed right from the young age?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The reality is I've actually been an entrepreneur since I was little. And I remember being as little as 10, 11 years old and like just having these like ideas of wanting to create, to build, and to like start businesses or just I remember noticing like, oh, they do that and they make money with it, and then this builds a business and like you can do things. And I was really interested in music and creative things as
Mm,
well. But the interesting thing is that like I grew up with a family that was very traditional,
hmm
extremely traditional. Every like my parents, my dad, and all of my siblings and in-laws, like their siblings, like everybody all just like kind of followed the traditional path of just like go to college, get a job, and then work at a job, which nothing wrong with that, but and I think most people follow that path, right? And I think from a very young age, like I knew I was different in that, like I was kind of exploring things and trying to create stuff. And I started my first business when I was 13 years old,
Wow.
and that was on MySpace. Do you remember MySpace?
MySpace,
So
yeah.
on MySpace, there were a lot of bands on there and a lot of musicians, and I started like doing graphic design for bands on MySpace and designing graphics
Wow.
for them and t-shirts and all sorts of stuff. And I mean, I guess I would call it my first business, right? It was the
hmm
first time like I ever actually like created something and then like got paid for it.
hmm
Um, Outside of like lemonade stands and everything when I was a kid. Of
How
course, we did
how
that
did
too.
that idea came from? Like, where did that came from, the idea to start something like that? Because, like, we as a humans usually like this is really rare what you actually experienced. And I
Hmm.
can say that from from the perspective that I how many people I interviewed, and I can see that like this is really rare. Like not many people
Yeah,
has it that
especially back then. Like this was
hmm
very early internet days.
hmm
And like MySpace was brand new. I would collect payments over PayPal. PayPal was brand new. Like nobody even knew what that was
yeah
yet. But I'd make a design, I'd get paid 20 bucks for it or something like that. And I just remember like the idea came to me when I just at that age I started getting into graphic design, and
uh-huh
I was always a creative person. So I
hmm
got a computer, and I got around my parents' computer, and I started like trying to download software and make things, and I wanted to create stuff, and then started realizing like, oh, there's people out there that'll pay for this. And so I started creating designs for these bands and people like that. And that evolved over the years from, designing for
yep
bands and then into
yep
designing like websites and doing web development. I even started doing like iPhone apps. And
uh-huh
when the iPhone came out, what, 5 years later, um, and then things like that. And I got into graphic design. I eventually got into music. I started a recording studio, and
hmm
then got into filmmaking and production, and started making videos. And so it was always like creative endeavors. It was always, in the realm of like commercials, marketing, social media, design,
hmm
branding, all of that stuff. And then I just did that for a lot of years, and just all through high school and all through college, just
hmm
always ran my own businesses. Was never like real successful at it, but like I knew it was what I wanted to do because I didn't like the idea of being told what to do. I didn't like the idea of having a boss. I've always just kind of been wired for that, like wanting that freedom. And it was kind of interesting, growing up with parents that are very traditional,
hmm
siblings that were all traditional, and going to school, and then like my parents kind of being like, well, how come you're not interviewing for jobs, or like what
hmm
is going on? This is very different.
hmm
And they were always very supportive of it, and like wanted to be supportive and wanted to be helpful. I don't know that
hmm
they always knew like what to do
hmm
because it was so different for them, or they still don't like always understand what it is that I do or how it works, but they definitely always wanted to support as well. So I just have been doing that ever since I was little, and that's just kind of always been my path.
Yeah, yeah. So even in a school, like how like everybody around you sees you, like when you've been in a school and like you had these ideas coming at you and you just didn't want to follow the same path as most of the people. So like what was that experience for you?
Like in high school, you mean?
High school, yeah, yeah, I would say because like you started already in 13, so
Yeah,
it looks like differently for like when you've been even really younger, like even younger than that, probably.
it was going into high school that I started doing. I was known, I think, in the school for just being like ultra creative. I was into the music and the arts,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I designed the school yearbooks
Uh-huh.
every year, or like I was like we had a team of us working on it, but I did a lot of like the big spreads and was kind of like a head designer on that. Um, I designed most of the T-shirts for our school, like
Wow.
all the
Okay.
sports teams and everything. I designed all of those. And then I started my own like at one point started my own like apparel company. So I had
hmm
T-shirts that I was selling. So I was walking around like collecting orders from my friends. Like, do you want a T-shirt? Do you want a $10? Do you want a T-shirt? And then I'd go and I'd print them and order them. And then all the kids at school like all wore my T-shirts. Like it was kind of like that. I was in the arts. Like I said, I designed the yearbooks. In fact, the year after I was in Iowa, graduated from high school, and then moved to Utah.
Uh-huh.
The school actually contacted me and hired me to design the yearbook for the next year after I graduated. So
That's cool.
I was always very involved in like the arts and like creating stuff for the school, just all through high school. And then of course in college,
Yeah. Yeah.
colleges are much bigger. So I was just running my own thing, and I was started getting clients that were paying like pretty big numbers to.
hmm
I would charge maybe 5-10 grand to design and develop a website for them, or do
hmm
like branding projects. And so I started getting some of those, or building apps. Um, and then in school I was always just trying to figure it out. I actually went to school for graphic design.
All right.
So I was there for graphic design, and by the time I graduated in graphic design, I already had 11 years of experience doing
hmm
client work in
hmm
graphic design. So it was kind of a school was kind of it was like I was supposed to be there,
Uh-huh.
but like it didn't. I don't feel like it really did much for me
hmm
because everything that I was supposed to learn in the 4 years of college, I learned from real world experience. I learned from working with clients. I didn't learn from sitting in a classroom learning how to use Photoshop. I learned how to use Photoshop by sitting down and using Photoshop for years
Oh,
before I even
important
started
thing.
school.
Holy smokes. Yeah.
And so like when I got into school, like they just started teaching all this stuff, and I was like, all of this is very basic to me. And
Hmm.
obviously like help me kind of hone my skills in it and stuff. But I had to take a lot of classes that I was like, why am I even here? I've been doing this for a long time. I already know how to use this software. I know how to do this. I know how to design. I know all these things because I learned it on my own. And I think that's a really good point to make is that, as good as college is for some professions and for some things,
Hmm.
and it's definitely become more so that way, in this generation, this
Yeah.
age that we live in, is that there's just so much more education that happens in life and experiencing things in outside of school than what happens like in a formal classroom. And I
Hmm.
learned that from a pretty young age.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. I love that what you said about especially when you said that um you had to get your hands on the thing to actually make it work for you and understand it properly, right?
Mhm.
This is
Yeah.
so important in this world. Like not even just in this world. Like it's generally super important, right? Because most of the people and what we can probably you can even see that there are people that they are just like stuck or like they studying all the time, but they are not doing anything because
Mm.
there's some beliefs that holds them back, or they don't probably beliefs, I would say, most of the time.
Mhm.
And so tell me, like, was there something that you had to overcome to actually get that, you know, get the hands on the thing and start doing it, or was it like really easy way for you to just you just went to that and start building and start testing and doing that?
I think I think everybody deals with that. I mean, when I was a teenager, like there weren't any blocks. It was just like carefree, just doing whatever I want, messing around. But I also wasn't like real successful with it. It just was like I was making money with it. Cool. But I think everybody deals with that on some level, especially as you start to get older and it actually matters. You're not living at home anymore. You have to actually support yourself. You have like it becomes there's bigger pressures there. And I do think that getting out there and actually doing something, taking the risk of putting it out there, putting it in front of people is a lot harder than like sitting in a classroom and learning about it. Right? I mean, doing something versus
Oh
learning.
yeah.
And people can get stuck in learning mode where they're just taking the online courses or going to school or whatever and thinking that like, hey, I'm going to learn this. And you know what? It has almost the same effect of like it makes you feel like you're making
Oh yeah.
progress
Oh
just
yeah.
by learning. In fact, one of my favorite things to do, if you use ChatGPT, like I'll be sitting in the car on like a long car trip, and one of my favorite things to do is just talk to ChatGPT. I love learning things,
Yeah.
right?
Me
And
too.
so, and I'll
Yeah.
just be like, so how does this work? And what does this do? And how do I do it this way? And what would you think about this? And how do I do this? Right? And it's actually a really cool brainstorming
Oh
tool.
yeah.
I think
Totally.
most people use ChatGPT to like replace themselves, and I think that's a problem.
Yep.
But if you really want to use it right, like use it to stretch your brain, use it to
Mhm.
learn, to explore, to become smarter. But then at the end of the day, you have to go out and do something because the real
Mhm.
learning happens from trial and error. So it's kind of a balance, I guess.
Yep.
You've got the learning, like you can learn from other people through their courses, through their programs or whatever, so that you can mitigate the amount of mistakes that you will make. Because they've already made those mistakes and they can show you how to do it so you don't make them. So that's like kind of a fast path. But then the
Mhm.
reality is that if you're just doing that, you're not making any progress, even
Mhm.
though psychologically it feels like you are. And then the way to really actually make something happen in your life, obviously, is just getting out there and doing it.
Mhm.
And at some point, that's what you have to do. And that's where the real learning comes from.
Yeah. How this habit, I would say, in your and even I would say even in my scenario, because I built this habit to actually do it this way and being able to like test so many things and just take the basically even though if not like I'm not taking like when something is not working, it's not that this is like the end result, right? It's just the data, and I collect the data and adjust on them because
Mhm.
what input I use is going to produce some type of output. So I can change the input, and then the output is going to be different, right? So
Mhm.
how that change the way you operate and like who you are basically.
The input and output thing, is that what you mean
Yeah, like I
specifically?
mean, like yeah, doing being okay with testing so many things and being able to
Mm,
uh, get the results because like I love to see everything what is working around us is basically working in systems,
yeah.
right? I don't know your opinion on that, but that's my opinion. And
I think it's
mhm, go
I
ahead.
think it's really reframing the idea of failure.
Hmm.
What is a failure? How does failure work? And if you really think about it, like true failure does not exist.
Mm-hmm.
It's not real, right? It's a kind of a made up concept if you think
Mm-hmm.
about it, because and it's really it's a perspective is all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the only way, a lot of people will say the only way to fail is to quit.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. The only way to
Yeah.
fail at a specific thing is to quit, because the moment you keep going, then it wasn't a failure, it was just a stepping stone. It
Yeah.
was a learning opportunity. You learned so much, and you're able to, even if you have to start all over, it's still not starting all over, because you're starting all over with knowledge that you didn't have the first time. So you're actually not starting all over. You're starting from here.
Yeah.
You started way down here initially, but now when you're starting all over,
Mm-hmm.
quote unquote, you're actually starting from up here and then
Mm-hmm.
from up here. So like that's life, right? Life is not, there is no starting over. Like you can't go back. It is only forward. It is only linear. It is only moving in a certain direction. And so if you think about it that way and like reframe everything into that, there really is no failure. Even if you, let's say you failed at a business came crashing down, you lost
Mm-hmm.
everything, and then you went and started a different business, it wasn't failure. It was that business set you up for what you needed in order to start this new one. Like how many times
So
have
good.
we done
Love it.
that?
Yep.
Where you go from one thing to the next, but then the next thing that you do, you probably couldn't have done that without all of the prior experience and learning from the first one. So like I would never think of anything as a failure. I would think of what am I working on right now? What am I doing? What decisions am I making right
Mm-hmm.
now? And where are those decisions going to get me to?
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, that's what it's all about, is just continuing to make decisions. Now, when something fails, let's
Mm-hmm.
say, or when a business goes crashing down, or like you lose a client, or some like those things happen. That's not to say that they're not hard. It's not to say that it's not difficult or emotionally draining at times, but it's not a failure. And you can bear through those things, and you can accept that they are hard, but then also accept that they're not the end game. I mean, if you think about it, like the only real failure is death, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then even then, like if you believe in life after death, even that's not right. So maybe it doesn't even exist, this concept of failure, true and complete failure. It's really just that everything is a stepping stone to the next thing, and we are, as a species, or as a human, as a soul, however you want to look at it, on a path towards an end goal. Or is it an end goal, or is it just on a path that just continues forever? So
Yep.
that's kind of how I look at it. And I
So
think I
good.
had to reframe that early on
Mm-hmm.
in life. And just because I was so driven to be entrepreneurial, I naturally went through a lot of these quote unquote failures,
Yep.
and then started to realize that, like, oh, none of these are actual failures. And
Mm-hmm.
and the reality is that risk is a concept
Mm-hmm.
that is interesting and slows people down. But at the end of the day, what is risk?
Mm-hmm.
What the risk basically implies that there's failure, but if there's no failure, then is there even risk,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or is it just decisions you make that take you down a certain path? And if they take you down a path that you don't want, then you change the decisions to go down a different path. That's maybe a different way of looking at it.
Yeah, yeah. Love that you brought that the concept about the risk. How you because it's a big concept and when it comes to like lots of people are scared of like taking a risk basically, but my idea or my point of view on risk is like freaking everything is risky. Like
Yeah.
even your life get like you being born is risky for the person that's giving you, you know, like what is your take on risk and how you manage your risk?
Yeah. Well, kind of like I was talking about, it's like it makes me wonder, like, what is risk?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Risk is what are we saying when we use the word risk? We're saying, well, if we make a certain decision, there's a possibility that this goes in a direction that is um, not what I want,
Mm-hmm.
essentially, right? But that risk exists with every decision. So let's say you're like, I want to start this business, but I'm afraid that it might fail, because there's a possibility that it might fail,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, and so you can take that decision, and you can say, like, okay, there's a risk there, because it may go a different direction than what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I could lose everything. I could whatever. And but then if you think about it, that the alternative is, let's say I don't want to take that risk of starting a business and potentially losing everything. So instead, I'm going to get a full-time stable job. All right, that's how most people think about it. Okay. Not everybody, but a lot of people do, I think. So I'm going to get a full-time stable job. But the reality is that there's inherent risk in that as well. Like, in fact, in
Yep.
some ways, there's actually more risk because
Oh yeah.
you're not in control of whether you have a job or not. Your
Mm-hmm.
boss is in
Mm-hmm.
control of that. And at any point, you can get laid off. And so, who's to say that by making that decision, that you're not also or more likely to fail, right? To lose everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so the reality is that like it doesn't matter what decision you make. Like it's not that like this is risky and this is not. There may be different levels of risk in terms
Mm-hmm.
of when you're showing up in a bigger way in the world, you're getting bigger and bigger. Like you grow a company that has a lot more revenue, there's more risk because there's more downside. There's more
Mm-hmm.
potential, right? If you're just starting out and you lose everything, well, everything's not very much. And so risk scales in terms of that, but it's not that one way is risky and one way is not. Like every decision you make has a potential possible future that is not what you want,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what it is. And the reality is, and I think this part's really important. I learned this initially from a book by Seth Godin
Mm-hmm.
called "What to Do When It's Your Turn."
Mm-hmm.
And if you've ever read that book, it's
Nope.
it's amazing.
Okay.
I love it, but he talks about risk in this way where he says essentially, we're analyzing risk, right,
Mm-hmm.
of these decisions
Mm-hmm.
that we make. And all the risk is the potential possible future of something going a different direction than what
Yep.
we want it to.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that potential possible future is also in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Um, None of us can see the future. We don't know that's going to happen. We're projecting it. We're creating this idea. We're imagining this potential possible scenario. And
Yep.
so, therefore, it's not real. It's not true.
Mm-hmm.
It's completely made up. And so, as long as you're going to make up these scenarios, you might as well make up a positive one. And you might as well work towards that positive one. And then, as things change throughout the path, you just divert your direction, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
you course correct as you go. And that's naturally what's going to happen. And so rather than trying to see the future, instead, just set yourself on a path and give yourself time to go down that path and then reevaluate. Right.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, you're going to go, this is working or this is not working. If it's not working, then let's make a change to make it work. And then what are we going to do from there going forward? And so the reality is we can't see the future. And the only thing that we know is that if I make a decision, that something will happen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is, but something will happen. And whatever happens will become my new normal.
Yep. Yep.
And
Mhm.
that's the reality.
Yep.
It will become your new normal. That will become life. And whatever that is, you will make decisions to deal with that thing. And
Mm-hmm.
you'll continue to go forward. And so I know we're getting like kind of like deep psychology
It's
here
all
and
right. Yeah.
like deep philosophy on this, but that's the reality is that like it's like I said, like the idea of risk exists as a principle, as a concept.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the real risk or the like failure like isn't really a thing. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
matter of like choosing a path and going down it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll add on one more thought here that I think is really important to keep in mind. The way that you mitigate risk is by acquiring skill sets.
Mm-hmm.
So if I go into let's say if I go into like an investment opportunity
Mm-hmm.
and I'm investing in something,
Mm-hmm.
and let's say it's real estate, right? And I
Yep.
have zero experience investing in real estate,
Huh.
there's a certain amount of risk with that of things that could happen. But let's say I came in as a very experienced real estate investor into that deal, and I'm able to watch what's going on with it, and I know what's going on, I understand the numbers and the percentages and all that kind of
Yep.
stuff. The risk is completely mitigated because of my skill set, because of my knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going into entrepreneurship and you're starting a business is inherently risky. But
Mm-hmm.
if you're really good at it, if you know how to market and sell and promote a product and get customers, then the risk virtually goes away
Mm-hmm.
because it's now you're investing in something that you know.
You are
And so,
stacking basically,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, you are basically stacking your like the all things, the skills basically into your favor to make it like less risky. That would you say?
you're stacking the deck,
Yeah, yeah, there we
really.
go. Yeah,
You
yeah,
don't, you don't, the risk goes away because
yeah.
now you just know, like, oh, if something slightly goes downhill or off center, all I have to do is course correct, and I know how to,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so developing those skills and learning, and some of that comes through practice, like we talked about, of
Mm-hmm.
doing it and growing
Yep,
businesses. The more and
yep.
more you do it, the better and better you get at it. Some of it comes from learning and going through courses and
Mm-hmm.
programs and just investing in yourself. And that really, at the end of the day, is like whatever you're going to do in your life, whether it's get a job or it's start a business or something else, you're probably going to study how to do that and you're
Mm-hmm.
going to practice it over time and you're going to get better and better at it and the risk factor will basically go away. So that's how I look at it.
Very cool, very cool. Love it. I've been playing actually with AI quite a bit, and I had a conversation with it lately, and I've been like, what is the ratio that I should like because I'm like obsessed about time management and so on, like managing myself, not time, because
Hmm.
time management is basically managing myself. That's my belief on that. Uh, so what it says to me is basically that like 75% or 70% we should focus on action, doing, and like those rest of the percentage to 100 is basically studying, right? Studying your personal development, studying skills, studying what we need, because we know all of us probably know that, success in a business is pretty much 80-90% mindset. You need to become the person to do the thing and be to have the thing, right? To have the life or whatever. So, what is your thoughts on, um, what I'm like when it comes to um that time management, for example, how are you managing your time and like this type of things?
Um, I don't know how much like what the exact numbers are, what the percentages are. Um, but I do think the principle, the idea
Mm-hmm.
of what you just said is probably accurate. You know, if you want to see growth, then yes, like that comes through action,
Mm-hmm.
not through learning, but the learning helps kind of fuel it.
Yep.
So yeah, I would agree with that. As far as how I schedule my time,
Mm-hmm.
I I'm a little bit different in this regard.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just be
Great.
honest that up
Yeah,
front,
yeah,
this may
that's
not
right.
resonate with
Yeah.
everybody, but I'm very much not a time scheduler. So
Mm-hmm.
um, I'm a creative type. I'm a strategic type. I'm a thinker. I'm not actually much of an executor, like action taker type person. I and not that I can't do things. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm very technical. I know how to do things. But my favorite day is a day where I don't have any calls on my calendar. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually specifically build that into my schedule. Like there's days where I don't take calls. There's days that are, and then calls are specifically siloed off in a specific time of day.
Mm-hmm.
My mornings, I never have calls in the morning. So even
Mm-hmm.
right now, we started this at 1 o'clock,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's when I start my calls. I don't do calls before 1 o'clock. And so my days are very structured more so into like free flowing blocks
Mm-hmm.
versus very like percentages or structure like this much time doing this. Now that might work for some people listening to this. It might not work for other people. That's fine. You have to really like figure out how you operate and the way your energy works. But I know for me and for most people is that the morning is when cortisol is at the highest. Your brain energy is at the highest when you have the best thinking capacity for those 2 or 3 hours first thing in the morning. And for me, I take advantage of that
Mm-hmm.
of using those to do the highest leverage tasks in a lot of cases, but honestly the most creative tasks.
Mm-hmm.
And so I allow for that time to be when I need my brain at peak performance, optimal
Mm-hmm.
level to be able to do the difficult things, the working on difficult problems in the business. I use it for writing content, for being creative, for coming up with ideas, for thinking through things. Those are my mornings, and they're very free flowing and non-structured. So I wake up when I wake up. I go on a walk and I'll spend 15 or 20 minutes just walking through my neighborhood slowly, just allowing it. And then I get back to my desk and I work on whatever I feel like working on, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And usually it's one of those things that I explained. It's 2 or 3 hours, sometimes 4 in the morning until like I notice I hit a wall, and that's where I take a break, go eat lunch, work out, something like that, and then I come back to it and then I do the tasks
Mm-hmm.
more so, the calls,
Yep.
the
Yep.
meetings, the tasks, things that need to get done. I'll do those more so in the afternoon because they don't take as much uh, energy, if you will, and
Mm-hmm.
and they're not as vital, they're not as critical or as important for me to get like right. It's just more like, okay, here's the thing that needs to get done. What should we do here? Let's just do it, right?
Yeah.
And so that's more so how I structure my time. Um, but I do think that either you're spending your time doing activities that will actually move the needle in your business
Mm-hmm.
if you're looking for
Yep.
growth.
Yep.
So you do have to pay attention to what types of activities you're doing. If it's all just learning and not actually doing anything, that's a problem. Or if you're like me, you're either hiring people or you're figuring out systems in your business or AI
Mm-hmm.
systems
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that those things are happening consistently in your
Mm-hmm.
business, even when you are not doing them. And ultimately, like that's the goal, I would say.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's basically like scaling stages, I would say, getting because you have already like I'm not sure how long you are in a business, like in this business that you do, but basically systems leveraging and AI now implementing, this is all like scalable, like helping you scale without you being as much involved in so this is pretty cool. I love that. I love the conversation. You're super cool. And I want to lead with a few more questions to why you design it the way of you executing your day this way.
Mm. Um, a couple of reasons. Number one is I want to get the most out of my natural rhythms. Most people ignore their rhythms. They
Mm-hmm.
force themselves past it.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of, in our culture, we've just kind of decided that like the work day is 8 hours. But there's nobody, or I wouldn't say nobody, I guess. There's very few people on this planet who are actually productive for 8 hours
Mm-hmm.
or more. If you look at most offices where people are working for 8 hours, it's not 8 hours of productive work that they're
Oh, sure, no.
doing.
Yeah.
It's 3 or 4 hours of productive work, and then the rest of the time is spent scrolling on social media or talking to coworkers or
Yeah.
ping-ponging emails and meetings back and forth and shirking responsibility to somebody else. Like, I mean that's I never worked in a corporate environment, but I think most people in that environment would probably agree that's kind of what happens. Okay. And,
No,
minus
they
maybe a
they
few like
no no
really high
no.
performing
They
people.
they would say that it's they are working hard from morning to evening.
Well, and maybe some of them do, right? Not saying that's everybody, but I do think that generally that's how most people are. And the reality is that it's not that there's anything wrong with us. It's literally just like our bodies have limited capacity for what we can do. And you can force yourself past that continually over and over and over again, but you're gonna at some point you're gonna end up burnt out.
Oh yeah.
Either psychologically or physically. Psychologically meaning like you're just like, "Ah, I don't want to work on this anymore and it's a struggle to get past it. Or physically meaning like you just get sick. All right. You're pushing yourself to the max, you're pushing your body to the max all the time and never giving yourself like pauses or breaks, then you're just burning out and you're getting sick. And so you can push really hard for 2 weeks and then get sick and then be off for 2 weeks. And if you want to do it that way, it's fine. I don't like getting sick.
Yeah.
So instead, imagine if you could keep yourself in what I call flow,
Mm-hmm.
in a rhythm where it's just consistent all the time. And now it's not like 2 weeks on and then 2 weeks off, and then you have to start over from square one. It's just consistent output over time. And if you
Mm-hmm.
can trust the process that what I'm doing over time is going to produce results, and I'm going to operate within the capacity that I have, then that's a different conversation, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's kind of my goal with everything is that like I want to operate in flow
Mm-hmm.
and I want to schedule and plan certain activities for when I'm most optimized to perform them.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the morning, that's when the creative tasks or deep thinking tasks will take place
Mm-hmm.
because I wake up in the morning and I'm in peak energy, peak performance. I'm ready to go. Like my brain is sharp and
Mm-hmm.
clear. And
Yep.
I get personally for me about 3 hours of that or 4 hours. And then I hit a wall.
Mm-hmm.
And others are going to be different. We're all different. But this is what I've discovered for me is that that happens. I hit a wall. It's the same thing every um every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I can try to push past that wall and just
Mm-hmm.
keep going, but my productivity is going down whether I like it or not.
Yep.
And
Yep.
my brain's not functioning the same. And usually for most people when that happens, if you just take a 20 or 30-minute break, go eat some lunch. And I'm not talking about like getting food and then sitting at your desk and working while you're eating. I'm talking about like separate, take a break, go spend 30 minutes away, eat lunch, relax, just allow yourself to do whatever you want. Go to the gym if you like to, work out, like whatever it is, go on a walk. It's kind of like a reset
Mm-hmm.
psychologically.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a scientist, but like all this stuff is studied. Like
Mm-hmm.
this is based in science, right? Um, and so as you do that, then you get that break, and then you can actually come back to work with
Mm-hmm.
more energy and more enthusiasm, and actually do another sprint of hard work, and you can do things really well. So it's really more so playing along with those rhythms rather than fighting against them. And it's just the way that I like to operate, is working within that, really being clear on like what my capacity is, and then sticking to that, and the rest of it like not getting caught up in the hustle culture hype that you have to be working all the time and that if you stop for any second then you're going to be leaving money on the table, all this stuff that's designed to just scare you into working or buying another app or another productivity tool or whatever it is, because let's be real, like it's all that information's out there to sell something. Just really understanding that like this is how the human body works and I'm going to work with that instead of against it, and you can create a flow and a rhythm that is so much more productive
Hmm.
than you would otherwise trying to like burn yourself out doing too much.
Yeah, yeah. And I would say also like we're trying to design the business to actually support our life, like personal life and so on. So if you, I don't know, you have your own family already, like kids or so. So
Hmm.
probably to support you also and being able to be with your kids and do stuff what you want and so on, right? Be able to be present for them. Because for example, for me, when I was a kid, that was like that's the biggest driver for me because like literally my parents been working like three jobs to get by every month literally, so I couldn't like really see them at all, right? So that was like I want to change this. This is not how it's supposed to be. I want to be present for my kids, right? I want to be able to support them every way possible, right? So probably if you are having this like if you are having family, that's probably one of those driving sources you actually also designed it this way, right?
Yeah, well, yes, and I do have three kids, and that is a that is a major driver for everything that I do, and for this way of thinking.
Hmm.
In fact, I think a lot of people, there's probably people listening to this that maybe are not resonating with what I'm saying, and who maybe don't have kids, or it doesn't matter. But I do think that there's a there's a huge difference between trying to run a business, having little kids, and not. Like huge difference. And so everyone's gonna have different values. And so at the end of the day, it comes down to what you want.
Hmm.
And I know there's people that are like just crazy, like hustle, whatever, who maybe don't have kids or just don't spend time with their kids or whatever it is, or their kids are older, so then they just don't see them as much, or they're not like taking care of them. Like my kids are little.
Yeah.
And so they're in a different phase or different season or different type of life. And it's like, no, just go crazy, like make it happen. And that's a different mentality. But I think a
Hmm.
lot of my mentality is really driven, it is driven subconsciously by that need to like not just kill myself all the time trying to build a business, because at the end of the day, the business is important to me and I want to build things and I want to create stuff, but it's there's other things that are also important to me.
Hmm.
And a lot of those things are um, being available for my wife and kids,
Hmm.
having time to go on vacations, to spend time together, to being able to take time off. Most days if I'm working hard on stuff in the morning, using that capacity, and then if I don't have calls in the afternoon, like I can go and do whatever I want. I don't have to work all the way through the afternoon. I will if there's something else to do. I'll get stuff done, might as well. But then a lot of times it's just like let's go do something with the kids, or let's work on another project, or let's like, anything, right? And for me, at least personally, that flexibility and that freedom is really important to me. And so, yes, I designed my life and my routine around leaving that flexibility for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there different I don't know if that's in your scenario, but is it there is like a I don't know how small your kids are, but are you planning or are you teaching them different way of like thinking or like giving them some, like different examples of how the life could look like to actually, like or if it's even in your plan to do so.
Yeah, my kids are little, so they're not really thinking about careers yet. But I mean, outside of like, I want to be an astronaut, that kind of thing. But we definitely, I mean, I think that I teach them that regardless of whether I try to or not, they're seeing it through example.
Hmm.
The main thing that we try to teach our kids that I think is the most important is them understanding what it means to provide value in the world.
Hmm.
And that's the biggest thing. And so we'll have conversations about that and how um how is money made essentially, like even if
Hmm.
sometimes we give them money for doing certain things for us and whatever, but it's not for doing tasks, it's not doing for doing chores typically,
Yeah.
it's for providing value. So we talk about that with them in terms of like, hey, understand that what you did here is you provided value to me by doing this thing for me that I didn't have to do, and
Yeah.
therefore it's worth me parting with my money for you to do that. And so that's the main thing that I want them to understand, at least at the age that they're at, is just understanding how value transfer works, that money is a source of, or is a representation of value,
Hmm.
essentially. And then that
Hmm.
representation of value can be exchanged for other forms of value
Hmm.
in terms of work or labor or ideas or strategies or whatever it is. And so that the more that they think about how can I provide value to others, that's how I will make money. I think it's just a really good foundation for them to start
Oh,
learning from,
so good. Yeah,
at least from a young age.
totally. So good. So, last couple of questions I have. What is your why behind all of this, what you do for others and, what you're building basically?
I mean, my family's a big part of it for sure.
Hmm.
I mean, like selfishly, 100%. Like
It's
I'm
not
here to
bad. Yeah, there is
build
nothing bad
wealth
about
and
it.
abundance for my family so that we can live a free life and go on vacations, enjoy our time together. Like that to me is I obviously care about that. Being able to live a life that is focused on the things that actually matter
Mm-hmm.
is important to me. Getting so caught up in one thing or the other, I think is just you can cause
Yeah.
yourself to miss out on the essence of what life is about. So that's important to me is being able to do that. And then, within the business, I've definitely built my business around things that I care about as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm definitely that type. There's certain entrepreneurial types, and some of them are able to just like think of, oh, here's a pain point that I can go and solve, and just go solve that, and they can
Yeah.
work hard on it. Since I'm a creative type, since I'm a more of a thinker, like I have a hard time working on things that I don't care about,
Mm-hmm.
or things that are causes that I don't care about. And so it has to mean something to me for it to work. Which can be a roadblock, honestly, for like growth, but then it also has its upside. So I would say that like, my business is built around helping other entrepreneurs to grow, to build businesses, to learn what I've learned. And I care about that. I think it's important for people who are entrepreneurial to have support, to be able to learn how to grow, and especially be able to like share their voice and their no, their knowledge and their
Mm-hmm.
experiences with people. A lot of what we do is helping people create videos and start podcasts or create content and put their ideas out there and their message out there. And I do it's not just to me about like going viral to get a bunch of views so you can grow your
Mm-hmm.
business, but it's about like actually putting some ideas out there because the reality is there's a lot of really bad ideas out there, frankly.
Yeah.
And from my perspective, right? And there's a lot of content out there that's not productive for our
Mm-hmm.
world, that's not helpful, it's not helping anything. And there's a lot of negative voices out there. And the reality is that like from a I've always said that my mission with this business is to amplify positive voices in the world, take the people who
Mm-hmm.
have actually done something, who are successful, who have built things, who have good values, who have that kind of stuff, and help them get over their blocks, their fears around producing that message and putting it out there so they can actually do it. Because the problem is the people who don't have anything to say, they don't have any fear about putting it out there. Because there's no risk, there's no downside if they were to mess up. They don't have anything. And yet I work with these entrepreneurs who are very successful and who've done so much and then they're like afraid of making videos or putting it out there because they don't want to get it right because they do have so much to lose by doing it and doing it wrong, right? And so then you end up, the internet just gets flooded with a bunch of slop, for lack of a better word, of just poor, low quality content
Mm-hmm.
that's not really helping anybody, and that's the majority of what's out there. Um, and that's the reality is that that's what happens because anybody can say anything. And so really, I do feel a lot of passion around this idea of helping people who are successful, who have done things, who are trying to be or have an idea or a message that they want to get out there to do it, to get it out there, and then to turn it into a business so that they can get out there even bigger and do even more with it. And so, yeah, there's my multiple levels of why, what I would say.
So cool. Love it. Well, thank you so much for being here. I have a last question for you.
Mhm.
If this would be your last interview you've ever done, what would be your message that you would love to leave behind you?
Mm. These questions are always so hard. What would be my final message? I think what I would say is that at the end of the day, it all doesn't matter. I think this is probably the most like potent message in my mind right now is if you're trying to grow a business or you're trying to build something, product or sell it or get it out there, build a following, whatever it is, and you're frantic about it, you're trying to make it happen, and you're growing and you're stressing out and you're going crazy and everything because the world said that that's what you need to do to be successful. I think the best thing that anybody can do in any situation is just like pause for 2 seconds, take a step back, and be like, what am I really doing and why? And does it really matter? Is this really the most important thing? And I think a lot of people are maybe afraid to do that
Hmm.
because if you discover that it's not, it could completely upend your entire life and what you've given your entire life to, the focus that you've put all of your focus on. Because you start to think like, it's kind of a scary thought, right? You realize that like I've put my entire life into growing this business. Now you're going to tell me that doesn't matter. And when I say that doesn't matter, it doesn't mean that you stop doing it. We can do things that, we don't have to just do the only things that are the most important thing in the world, right? It may matter to an extent in terms of keeping you occupied and giving you something to do and making an impact on people. And it maybe it does matter, but like understand where its place is in the world.
Mhm.
And I think that people often oversubscribe to their career, their profession,
Mhm.
and undersubscribe to life. Think about the connection, the relationship between that, between the thing that you do and the life that you live, and what its place is actually in that. I think that's a big I don't know if that I'm explaining this well, but I do think that's a big lesson that I've learned over the years. Having gone from like just grinding it out like crazy and killing myself for a business to make it grow and everything to and honestly a lot of that driven by the need to be successful or to be seen as successful or to have people recognize me or whatever it is, which when you get down to the part of it is like none of that really matters. And going from that, admittedly, like that was a lot of the drive early on to realizing that actually, you know what, that none of that matters. When you lose that drive or that ambition to achieve that, then you start to go, why do I do what I do?
Mhm.
And do I have to do this? And the reality is, you don't have to do any of it. And just because you don't have to do it doesn't mean you won't want to. You may still want to, and that's totally fine. But when you can operate from an energy of doing something because you want to, because you love it, because it feels abundant to you, because it feels positive and it feels great and something that you want to achieve, that's a very different situation than operating from an energy of, I have to do this, I need to do this,
Mhm.
and needing to because you need external approval or validation
Mhm.
or any of these other things that are driving you to kill yourself over something that doesn't matter,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And so that would be the message, right? Is I think what I've discovered over the last few years is realizing that like I've been driven by this need. That need is not real. It doesn't need to be there. And I've learned how to operate from the way that I like to operate, the way that I like to do things,
Yeah.
matching my body's rhythms and energy, like we talked about, really doing the things that I love to do and doing it in a way that feels abundant to me, that feels like building something that I feel like I want to build. And at the end of the day, that's what matters ultimately. So,
So amazing. Thank you so much. Uh, just a quick question. Are you Christian or are you religious at all?
yeah, I am Christian.
Yep. All right. So, thank you so much for being here.
Mhm.
It was my pleasure to have you here. Where people can find you to support you, join, program with you or connect with you.
Yeah, so you can go, my website is ericthayne.com. There's links to all of my free resources and everything that I have available for entrepreneurs who want to build a brand and grow their business online. You can get my book. So there's a book that's all about how to be a creator in today's world and create content and grow your audience and grow your business. That is at createdon'tcapture.com. So you can check that out. It's also on my website. And then you can follow me anywhere. I'm on all the social media platforms at Eric Thayne. So anywhere you want to go, I'm there and would love to hang out with you.
Awesome. We'll touch the links under the video. And for everybody who's listening, if there's something in you, don't ignore it. Share with someone who needs it. Subscribe, leave a review, and remember, you weren't born to follow the script. You weren't born to be free. Bye, everybody.